this video now.
In case you haven't seen what's going on lately, activists for ending the war in Gaza have taken to gathering on roads and bridges and stopping commuters from crossing. It happened last week in New York and San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle. They also blocked traffic here on the 405, but no one noticed.
Okay, that's actually, as a joke, that's fundamentally not a bad joke. Like, that actually was surprisingly not that bad of a joke. I can't believe I'm admitting this. Obviously, because, like, it's not, the receiving end of the joke is not the pro-Palestinian students or activists, but instead how traffic is.
What they did notice was this, that you have to be pretty dumb to think that the way to bring people around to your point of view is to make them late to pick up their kids from daycare. And that's what most normies are thinking. I have a kid. I have a job. And yes, I'm sure there are injustices on both sides in the Middle East, as there are injustices all over the world. But I'm going to be late for work, something you protesters on the bridge seem to have the luxury of not having to worry about, which seems kind of privilegey.
Isn't it funny that the dudes who are saying this and like chirping literally have not had like a real job in 4 decades? It's like, Don Lemon, one, you're literally jobless. You right now don't even have the professional big boy job that you once did, which was already pretty comfy to begin with, and you up the bag. And it's like, now you do what I do. You and I are doing the same thing. Don't act like you speak for the common man by being like, yeah, that's right. Like, your commute is not a real thing, okay?
You can glue your hands to the street because your hands don't have to do any work today. I'm not saying there aren't sincere passions.
Oh, not the pro-Palestinian students aren't me, guys. Scott Galloway.
About Gaza, especially among people from the region, but social justice warriors, for a lot of them, it seems like it's more about the warrioring than about whatever the cause is. If you really cared about apartheid so much, which Israel does not actually practice.
Oh, hey, this guy hates religion, by the way. Hey, have I told you guys how much Bill Maher hates religion? All religion, okay? He hates all religion unconditionally. Why is it there's so many of these dudes who are always like, I hate all religions, I'm just chirping about all religions? They never have that smoke for the religious fundamentalism at the heart, okay? At the heart of the Israeli state. What the f do you mean? You literally just defended the ethno-state. The ethno-state specifically designed around one ethno-religion, Judaism. It's actually not Jewish at all for Israel to exist in the way that it does, but it is rather strange because he doesn't feel that way about Muslims. This is a guy who constantly talks about how ISIS is representative of all Islam and that sort of behavior. So on his own moral boundaries, he should be finding Israel to be an abhorrent stain by his own supposedly atheist framework.
Arabs there vote, they serve in parliament, they sit on the judiciary. Wouldn't you start with this? With the hundreds of millions of women in the world who live under a true apartheid, a gender apartheid of the most brutal kind?
What is Israel doing to people that wear the hijab under its apartheid regime, which you claim does not exist? All matter of right-wing religious fundamentalism that exists in majority Muslim nations is also an unfortunate byproduct of Western imperialism. Also, you just said Israel doesn't have a gender apartheid when like 40% of the parties in the Knesset are talking about how much they want to cover the women and how little they should be learning to read. What do you mean, bro? Women must not read, party.
Are you really speaking truth to power, or do you just think you look cool in a keffiyeh? Which is really just the new Che Guevara t-shirt. Another historical figure you never researched, and so think is a hero, but was actually a sadistic, racist monster fighting for...
Bro, Che Guevara, literally, first of all, he's using the Heritage Foundation, which I love for this project. Che Guevara. Okay, before I start with Che Guevara's own personal history, I just want to mention something really funny here. Aren't you anti-cancel culture? Aren't you literally anti-cancel culture? You're chirping about a dude and what he wrote in the Motorcycle Diaries when he literally spent the rest of his life fighting for Pan-African nationalist black liberation directly in Africa? Hey, dumb, you are older than he was. And what have you done with your career? You're still racist. What an insane take, dude. What an insane take. He's literally like, yo, have you seen what Che had to write about black people back in the day? Time to cancel him. Please do not look at the Cuban Revolution and what it did for black and brown indigenous Cubans, what it did in terms of emancipation for them. Please don't look at what Che Guevara did for the rest of his life, post-Cuban Revolution. Please. Bro pulled up old tweets. It's crazy. Yeah, students have not done their research. The Heritage Foundation.
Communism, the worst form of government ever. But these are small matters.
Now's a good time to explain. Yeah, by the way, Bill Maher, the public N-word user, by the way, being like, Che Guevara is so racist. You haven't done the reading. He is such a arrogant piece of shit. I despise him so much because I'm not a radlib by any means, right? As you guys know, I get mad at radlibs all the time, especially when people talk about like white mediocrity or whatever. But like Bill Maher is a thing that cannot exist as anything but a white man, an old white man, okay? He's not funny. He's not intelligent. There is no version of Bill Maher that is any other race, any other background, okay? They get packed up. They might get opportunities. You might be like a mediocre white lady, for example, okay? And then boom, you'll get packed up eventually. No mediocre, arrogant, unfunny person has had this much staying power with the exception of Bill Maher. You cannot be like a black man and be this mid and have this much of a career in Hollywood. It just doesn't happen. So he is, in a way, unironically, the perfect representation of white mediocrity and white supremacy in that regard. It's just so bad. And as years have gone by, his quote-unquote comedy has only worsened. He is just basically repeating PragerU videos now. Also, he's calling Che racist. Remember his comedy sketch was straight up just anti-Arab, Islamophobic garbage? Yeah, he loves anti-Arab sentiment. He doesn't consider it to be racist. He considers it to be a brave and bold political statement. It was so racist, he went to Africa to fight in the decolonial struggle.
Small matters when activism merges with narcissism. Less about the cause and more about me. Look at me.
Oh, what? Dude, what are you doing? You're literally on student protesters who are getting brutally beaten down by the police right now for saying things that you are too terrified to say, because guess what? If you were to say those things, you wouldn't have a job anymore. That's right. You are a cowardly little piece. You might genuinely believe that Israel is awesome personally, but you know damn well that if you were to say half of the things that those student protesters are saying about how Israel is a genocidal state, about how Israel is committing a genocide and it is an apartheid regime, you would be shit canned, okay? Because that goes against the American State Department's interests. That's it. Because you have nothing else. You have nothing else to offer other than being an old, arrogant asshole. Talking about narcissism. Yeah, it's so narcissistic that these 18-year-olds and these 19-year-olds are literally putting their goddamn education on hold, getting suspended, getting arrested, getting brutalized, getting doxxed to do what is right. How dare they have morals? This is the problem with so many Americans. We are so selfish. Ultimately, we are so hyper individualistic. We are so materialistic. We are so hyper individualistic that like we are so in it for our own self-interest that we cannot imagine a world where someone does something for other people. We cannot comprehend that a human being can see the horrifying images coming out of Gaza, images that we paid for with our tax dollars and say, this is wrong, this is immoral, we have to put an end to this. So all of these other protesters must also be grifting. If they were grifting, why are they on the side that has no international support from governments? Why are people grifting on the side that the media is regularly bastardizing and lying about and calling Hamas supporters and Iran supporters and Islamist fundamentalism supporters? Ridiculous. I despise this freak so much. You alcoholic piece of...
Watch me. And if you like the way I'm fighting injustice, remember to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe to what? The counter protesters literally have media accounts. They are trying to unironically make a media career out of this situation. It's the Zionists that actually have their own personal accounts. The student protesters hide their faces, Bill. Why do they hide their faces, Bill? They hide their face because they get doxxed, Bill.
In February, a sad, confused man even lit himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy, and in his last Facebook post, he said, "Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery?" Interesting cocktail question, sir, and I guess the right answer is kill myself. But it wouldn't have actually fixed the problem if General Ulysses S. Grant had immolated himself and his last words were, "Hey, Lincoln, are you using that log?"
Wait, is he saying that Aaron Bushnell, instead of engaging in a radical act of protest as an airman, should have just violently destroyed the nation state of Israel somehow? Is that what you're saying, Bill? Are you going to give us the guns, Bill? What's happening? Would you be on board if people actually rose up in arms? Is that what you're advocating for? Anything that you do in forms of protest is actually bullshit. Guess what? Because you're not nuking Israel, so it's bullshit. Okay, man, thanks. The are you saying? Does he believe anything that he says? I don't understand it. Yeah, he's like, why are you protesting? Join the Al-Qassam brigades now.
And then last week, another sad, confused man set himself on fire at the Trump trial in New York. So you can tell yourself you're a martyr for the Palestinian cause, but it's a lot less special when the next guy does it for Stormy Daniels. I don't want to diminish how sad it is that someone would take their own life for any reason, but maybe from now on, before anyone commits an act of civil disobedience, they should ask themselves a few questions, like, is the most important thing in my life something I hadn't heard of 6 months ago? Do I even know? Do I even know what the fuck I'm talking about?
Once again, the assumption that like the people protesting against Israel's genocidal apartheid regime, they just simply don't know. Because if they did know how complex it is, then, you know, they wouldn't be protesting. They would be like me, making fun of the protesters. They would be like me, trying to both sides of genocide. They would be like me, actually, not even both siding, because I don't think he both sides it at all. I think he just is unconditionally dick riding Israel. Oh, if only you read the books that I've read that says Israel's genocide is good, actually, and totally valid, you know, then you wouldn't be protesting against 15,000 children being ruthlessly slaughtered with American tax dollars and American legal and political cover under the international community, as Israel gets to do that with our weapons that we paid for.
Am I really here for the cause, or is the cause here to bring you me? Hey, if it makes you feel good to cosplay as...
This literally falls apart. This falls apart instantly when you realize what's at stake for these protesters. Like, this is the same energy of being like, dude, you're a leftist grifter. You're a leftist grifter. You don't like what I say. Can't you comprehend that if you don't like what I say, then there are plenty of others who don't like what I say? I could be saying something else if I was a grifter. Nobody grifts to the left. Nobody protests an issue like this because they're going to get anything out of it. They do not get anything out of it, which is extra ironic because a guy who is getting something out of his unconditional loyalty to this apartheid regime is ascribing his own guilt and his own resentment for his actions to those who are actually putting their bodies on the line for what they believe in. That's what's funny about this entire process, that Bill Maher, a phenomenally mediocre person, like an unimaginably mediocre person, and he's so arrogant, and he's such a smarmy know-it-all, even though he is devoid of any kind of knowledge on the situation, and the things that he does know are just propaganda talking points that he spits out, like, oh, there's Arab members in the Knesset. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's super sick. Can a Christian or a Muslim citizen of Israel marry a Palestinian Muslim and give them citizenship inside of Israel? Or do they get downgraded? The answer might shock you, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe he didn't read that book, though, I guess. No, I'm Palestinian Israeli. Palestinian citizens of Israel can't live wherever they want. They literally have housing discrimination that is codified. The state that he's defending has literally written the rules that Israel is a state for the Jews. Israel is supposed to be a Jewish state. Think about that. There is no other world in which this level of exclusion is even remotely seen as permissible. We all know exactly what it is, but when Israel does it, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Sorry, I have to defend it. Not a leg to stand on for this asshole. That's why he's like, oh, I'm imagining a world where the students are actually just like me, mercenaries. A person who once made one brave statement in his entire life, an out-of-pocket statement in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, and was punished for it. So I spent the rest of my life suckling on the boot. That's right, Bill Maher, in the immediate aftermath of 9/11 said, you know who's brave? Dudes with box cutters that took over a plane and directly landed that plane on the towers. You know what's not brave? You know what's not brave? Lobbing cruise missiles at their family members from thousands of miles away. He said that, and he was, of course, understandably, immediately taken over the air. Why are you saying LSF, dumbass? I'm not saying I said that.